Why are you looking so seriously?
Mo wo muito irmão.
Okay, so our time is up. Good evening once again.
Good evening,
Good
sir.
sir.
You're welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So I would like to find out if you have any questions with regards to what we did last week before we proceed to health commodity procurement.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please, we couldn't get the slides for last week lecture.
Are you sure?
Yes, please.
Are you sure what I'm saying? Let me confirm. Because I sent to some people. Let me confirm.
It was
We
sent
had,
to.
You said?
sir, we had it. Sir, please, we had it.
So
You send it.
So it's on our page. It's on our page.
It's on your
Hey,
page. Yeah. So please. The
yes,
moment
sir.
is
Center have it because some of us we don't have it too.
We don't
Please
have it,
resend
sir.
it.
We had it.
please, do you have
Just
a
last
common
2 weeks own.
What we
please?
had it for last 2 weeks, sir. Last week, we don't have it.
Please. Your colleagues are saying you have it because I remember sending them. I don't know if you have a common platform. Then those that I sent the last slides to should forward to your because I remember even those that I'm supervising, I put it on the research page. So I'm expecting that was logistics management information system. And I forwarded it to quite a number of you. So please look at it, and then those of you who have it should post it. Do you have a common platform?
Yes, sir, but it wasn't posted there.
It wasn't there, sir.
But I have forwarded it to some of your colleagues. So those of you who received it, please kindly put it on your platform. Unless those I'm supervising, none of you or none of them is in this group that I'm teaching. Okay. Other than that, the class refs, immediately we finish, just send me a reminder so that I forward it to you. So apart from this, do you have any question with regards to last week's lecture on logistics management information system? Okay, so let us look at health commodity procurement. When you talk of health commodity procurement, when procuring health commodities, you pass through the normal procedure. But here, because it's got to do, we're talking about health, you need professionals to be part of it. And in most organizations, well-established organizations, we have the procurement committee, which is made up of different people with coming from different backgrounds. So here, when you pick the procurement team, I think we have people from other. Please, Rosapon. Okay, so when you talk of the procurement, it's a process of finding and agreeing to terms and acquiring goods, services, or works from an external source, often via a tendering or competitive bidding process. So when you talk of the procurement process, we are talking about finding, okay? So finding and agreeing to terms and acquiring goods, services, or works from an external source, often via tendering or competitive bidding. So here, procurement process, it doesn't happen. Okay, so you need to look for the item, you need to agree to terms, you need to the terms and conditions before you can acquire them. And finding is not just a matter of you getting that. Somebody must first, there must be a request, there must be a need. So in our various offices or procurement officers themselves don't procure for the sake of procuring. They procure because there is a need or there's been a request for an item to be procured. And then they look for the items, and so we go through the process. All the terms that I have mentioned, we go through them one after the other. So let us look at the procurement cycle. What is procurement cycle? The procurement cycle is also known as the procurement life cycle. We can refer to it as purchasing cycle or sourcing cycle. So these terms are used interchangeably. The procurement, purchasing, as well as the sourcing. The procurement life cycle refers to all the steps involved in obtaining goods or services for your business. So what are the steps involved when you want to procure goods or services for your outfit? So the procurement, what do you call it, life cycle or the procurement process has many steps. And these steps can be grouped into 5 broad stages. So one, the first, what do you call it, step in the procurement process or the procurement life cycle is to define and specify business needs. You need to define. Please, can you mute yourself if you are not talking? So when you talk of the first step is to define and specify business needs. So you say that you need, let's say, paracetamol, you need to define what, so you need to describe it. Because we have it in 2 forms. We have the syrup and then the tablets. There are some items that we have them in different forms. We may have the syrup, you may have ointment, like diclofenac. We have the ointment, we have the tab. There are other drugs that you may have suspension. You may have the tablet, you may have syrup, you may have the ointment. So you need to specify and then need to also state the gram and the quantity that you need. So you need to define and specify the needs. The next step is to invite supplier to submit bids. There's also a process known as the tendering. So after you have received the, what do you call it, the item.
I might have been an one. 10 over 10. 50%. This is 50%. Nobody can mine. The man at once a man.
So what you do is that after receiving the order, you now invite suppliers to submit the bids. So this bidding is also known as tendering. Please, I have muted you. Some of you have unmuted yourself and you are disturbing. Huh? It seems you just log in for the sake of logging in. Because if indeed you've logged in to study, then you wouldn't be making noise. You'd be talking about things that you are talking whilst you are having lectures. So what you do is that you invite suppliers to submit bids. And then this process is also known as tendering, where you invite, you give them the spec, so they will give their quotations. Then afterward, the next step is to evaluate and select suppliers. Having received the bids, having received bids from various suppliers, you evaluate them. And then in evaluating suppliers, there are we have criteria that you use to evaluate them. First, you are going to look at their track record. You'll be looking at their capacity, that is ability to do. You're looking at their financial strength and all those. Apart from that, you need also must look at the track record. Elsewhere, they will look at the they will assess companies in relation to other activities like child labor and all those things. And they want to make sure that the company is not linked to any terrorist group or any group that are uh, that have been banned. They look at all these things before you supply them, because in future, if it discover that uh, you were dealing with this company at a time that those companies have been banned, then you find yourself wanting. That is why now Russia is struggling, in the economy is struggling, because all the major companies supplying them or taking supplies from Russia have been banned. And so they cannot deal with them. If you are found dealing with them, you'll be sanctioned. And so they in evaluating and then selecting suppliers, you look at a lot of things. Then after
Let's go wash
selecting
your
the
hands.
supplier, you manage contract and
Wash your
deliverables.
hands.
You need to write, you need to enter into contract, or you award the contract to the most qualified supplier to supply you the items. And then after the procurement process, the last aspect of it is to assess and refine procurement processes. Each procurement process, you try to
Clean your hand.
evaluate it, come evaluate to see whether the processes are okay, or there are things that you need to do with regards to the process. Some of the processes are too cumbersome
Go.
to the point that it makes it difficult for suppliers
Hey,
to.
who are you now, baby?
Huh?
Eh? Robert, they'll be a children. They'll be able to rob.
Sister Nihad and Ida, please check your mics.
I will start removing you. I won't warn you again. The next time I remove you and you won't come back. So you assess the process, you evaluate the procurement process to see if there are any challenges, if there are any hindrances, you try any bottlenecks, you remove them, because some of them are cumbersome that
Remove them from
they make supplies
the client.
very difficult. So let us look at the introduction to health commodity procurement. In many countries, procurement unit within the Ministry of Health or central medical stores manages procurement for public health supply. The unit purchases the appropriate quantities of quality product which are necessary for ensuring continuous product availability. So what is saying is that in many countries, most countries, this activity, the procurement activity, is done by a unit within the Ministry of Health. So when you go to the Ministry of Health, they have the procurement department, or sometimes they refer to that supply chain department. They prefer using the supply chain because they don't only handle the procurement, they handle the supplies aspect of it. So normally you have the supply chain department, which has which has procurement, logistics, and all those people involved, and they manage all purchases regarding health, what do you call it, commodities. When it comes to health commodities, and there's this unit that procures the commodities. So let us look at the key stakeholders in procurement process. The procurement process involves many different parties whose input helps determine how, what, and when of procurement. So it is not just one party or one unit, one department which handles what do you call it, the procurement activities. It is a unit, and so you have other people, other functional, what do you call it, heads or other functions coming um, into play. So the procurement process involves many different parties, and then we have the program unit. When we talk of the program unit, for instance, you have the Family Health Division, you have the National Malaria Control Program. These are the units, what they call it, the program units. And these divisions, they have their needs, they submit their requests to the procurement department or the unit in charge of procurement to procure whatever item they need. Bridget.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Bridget.
Please, with the process involved in procurement, is it still done in our hospitals? Or like what I want to say is that do they do it before setting up the organization?
Can you come clear?
I am saying that with the procurement process, the 5 steps that was given, do they do it in the early stages of setting up the organization, or midway they get to do that as well? Because with our hospitals, I don't think they do the first, second, and all those steps now, because they already know where
your voice is fluctuating, so you have to be consistent.
Hello?
Yes.
I am talking about the procurement process. I am saying that with the process, do they do it in the initial stage of setting up the facility or the organization, or it is done midway?
Oh, the procurement process.
Yes, please.
Always they buy items for you. So it's not it's a continuous activity. It's not one time, it's not an event. I getting it. Or you are talking about the equipment you have in the facility. Those equipment sometimes are handled by contractors. So with regards to the procurement process, what we are talking about now is health commodities. We can talk about we are talking about the consumables. Okay.
Yeah, even with our drugs, do they still get suppliers like submitting their bid and all at this moment?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But in our part of the world, most of the drugs we receive, the last time I checked, about 60% of the drugs we have are grants or donated by the World Health Organization, USAID, and that is why Trump said that he's canceled the USAID. He suspended their work, and all over the world, people are complaining. No, he's doing that. He just wants to send a message. I get what I'm saying. They will come back. He just want to tell the world that without US, the world, a lot of people will suffer. So he just want to drum home the importance of the United States, because it's like people insult them, people say all kinds of things, people hate them for no reason. So he want to cut all these things for people to see that without them, you cannot survive. And already people have started raising concern that if USA and more, especially the AIDS and other things that he's decided to cancel, a lot of people will suffer. He's just trying to drum home a point. So apart from what do you call it, the items that are donated, because most of our drugs are donation. Apart from that, those that we procure ourselves, those items go through the procurement process before purchasing, because once it's a government business, okay, once it's a public entity, you cannot bypass the Procurement Act. And the Procurement Act stipulates that if you are going to procure anything, first it should be made public. You should call for bidding. These things are done public. If you read the dailies, often you see them call for supply. Even Kanye West, I've seen I've seen them a lot of the time advertising for suppliers, even though they may have their own suppliers. But then the Procurement Act frowns on what they call sole sourcing. So you cannot on your own buy. Even if you do some kululu, you still must follow the process. So the process are followed. Process are followed. If it is not under certificate of agency, you are allowed to, you go through the process. But then under certificate of agency, like the COVID, during the COVID, that is why people think that the former health minister may be prosecuted because he did sole sourcing. It should have, though it was under certificate of agency, it should have gone to Parliament for parliamentary approval. That's what the Procurement Act says. But he bypassed Parliament and later on apologized. But as to whether his apology will be taken, though it was taken at the time, but as to whether the government of the day has accepted it and he will go unpunished is up to them. So, so it goes through the process. They are still using the process. Some of you are not participating. You've just logged in and then you are doing your own thing. So let us look at so we're saying that the key stakeholders in procurement process, we have the Family Health Division, the National Malaria Control Program. So when you talk of the program unit, so realize that the Family Health Division, at first we used to have the PPAG. Are they still there? Are they still in the hospitals, or the PPAD? They are no longer, because it used to be a vibrant what they call division. It was an NGO, or PPA is not an NGO, is part of the hospital. It's a unit within the hospital. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, you are midwife, so you should know. PPAG, yeah, they still there or they are no longer there?
Hi.
We don't know
They are
PPAG.
there, sir.
What is it?
They are there. They are still
Okay.
there, sir.
They are still there. So they are the Family Health Division. Is that not it? And then we also have the Malaria Control, National Malaria Control Program. We used to have the polio, what do you call it, program and other programs that so we're saying that they are the major stakeholders because they will bring their request for the procurement. So we're saying usually they determine what product need to be procured to support their programs. So this program units determine the kind of product that must be procured to support their programs. We also have the National Drug Regulatory Agency. The National Drug Regulatory Agency should be part of this process. This one, so they are the stakeholders, okay? The program unit and then the National Drug Regulatory Agency should be part of this process. And this will ensure that the procured products are registered for use in the country. And that product need quality. So when it comes to procurement of drugs, you cannot procure without this agency because they will now authorize you, they will indicate the products that are registered for use in the country. So as we are talking, there are some drugs that you cannot, when you are seen in possession of those drugs, you can be prosecuted. I remember a colleague of ours who is dead, Dr. Tano. The wife said that he was in South Africa with morphine, and they told him he'll be arrested. She'll be arrested if she's seen using it. So she had to quickly come to Ghana. So in some countries, certain drugs you cannot use. Probably it's not registered. It's not part of those drugs that they use. Then funding agencies are also part that they are also stakeholders. So funding agencies are another important stakeholder in the procurement process. Whether funding comes from donor agencies or donor organizations, intergovernmental loans or national treasury funds managed by the Ministry of Finance, each has procurement requirement as a condition of their support. So all these agencies, the funding agencies, are also important. They are very important stakeholder when it comes to the procurement process because before they fund, before they finance any of your procurement activities, you need to abide by certain conditions for their support, without which they wouldn't. So when you talk of stakeholders, you're talking about program units. Apart from malaria, apart from, we've mentioned malaria, we've mentioned what do you call it, family planning. What other units do you have in your facilities? What other units do we have in Ghana Health Services that are also responsible for procurement? They performing special duties. Apart from family planning and then malaria control, what other?
So
Hello?
it's disease control. Disease control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
disease control. Okay. So these are units that they are considered stakeholders. Then manufacturers. Why do we consider, or why should we consider manufacturers as stakeholders? Manufacturers are important stakeholders, although frequently they are not directly involved until the later stages of the procurement process. Manufacturers are responsible for registering products in countries before procurement takes place. However, frequently the procurement unit does not know about nor is involved in this process. So here, you know that before a product is registered in the country, the manufacturers will go through like Food and Drugs Board. It's not Ghana Health Service. That will go to Food and Drugs Board to register. Every item they register, they must make sure that the product has been registered by the Food and Drugs Board or by the appropriate authority. So the manufacturers normally, what they call aid, they normally play a role. They play a role in making sure that their products are registered, are duly registered, so that it can be used. I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes you go to hospital and you see some herbal, few, not. I don't see the syrup of, but I see ointment and other things. And these days, I think the what do you call it? Herbal medicine is being is gradually being accepted in our healthcare. One time, a renowned professor, a renowned surgeon, professor, was saying that he had an experience in Confanochi. We had a patient who had this wound at his back, and the wound was so big. So they wanted to use local, and they used local herbs, okay, local medicine for one part of the wound, and then the orthodox one on the other side, on the other part of the wound. But the same person, but they realized that the other part with the local medicine was healing faster than the one with the orthodox. But they couldn't explain why. And that was the reason why some of them advocated that we should inculcate what we call it herbal medicine in our uh, healthcare uh, provisioning, so that people sometimes some of them they are very good, only that we haven't been able to do more research. We haven't been able to accept our our own medicine as being efficacious to heal. But what do we do? The Chinese have done, the Indians are doing it, so we can. We need to be able to do that. Only that people abuse it. One drug can heal every sickness. And one time I met this gentleman. He was at Kumasi Abato selling the herbal medicine. And it was like the hammering on the aphrodisiac side. You ask him, if you don't, so is that all that your drug can do? Then he said, oh, these people, if you tell them the truth, they won't buy. If you don't tell them that this one, it has manpower, they won't buy. And that is why he's also stressing on that aspect, because that's all that they are interested in. And I learned those ones to have a lot of issues. And a lot of men are going through a lot of challenges because of the abuse of herbal medicine. So it is a manufacturer's responsibility to register their drugs. Then let us look at the key terms in health commodity procurement. I made mention of tender. So what is tender? The tender documentation, when we talk of tender, it's a documentation and initiation of a process for soliciting bids, the specifications for the product service desired, and opening contract to bidding process. So when you talk of tender, all that it means that in Public Procurement Act, the Public Procurement Act demands that government procurement or contracts, every government contract must go through competitive bidding, and it's the same as the tendering. So here you tender your bid. What you do is that they will bring the item. For instance, they will tell you the items they want to procure. If it is health commodity, they will list them. They will give you the specs, the quantity. Then you will write, okay, you pick each item, and then when you'll be able to supply the item, the amount, and with it corresponding amount, then you seal and you send. When they go through the bidding process, they look at the best bidder. I will call it the best bidder, not the lowest bidder. Sometimes if you give it to the lowest bidder, you may end up not getting the contract. It has even happened to us. A gentleman came, he already has somebody sewing the school uniform for them, the nursing and midwifery student uniform. And then another gentleman came with a very good proposal. He sold some of them, he brought them, but then they wanted to try him with a security uniform. So they gave him the security uniform. He took the money and he never came. He supplied just few of them. He never came back. And I learned he's done it to even Ken Westy. You see, so before you give a contract to somebody, don't just look at the amount. You need to look, that's why we talk about their track record. Their track, very, very important. You need to look at their previous works. Look at their, what do you call it? Tax obligations as to whether they've been paying their tax. You need to even check from their banks as to whether they are not owing, they are credible before you give them the contract. That is why in government contracts, if you don't have your tax return, you are out. So anytime you want to bid for a government contract, you need to what is it? Make sure you've fulfilled all these requirements. Then we have a bid. A bid is a written offer for quantity of works or service at a stated price based on technical specification, other terms, and bids are submitted to a purchaser by an interested seller in response to an invitation for bids. So normally, we tend to use these words interchangeably. When you look at the tender, we're talking about the documentation initiation of process for soliciting bids. So the tender comes from the buyer. Okay, the buyer will send a document with the specifications, and then with the specs and everything, then the seller, okay, the seller will send a bid. And then the bid is in a form of, it's a written offer. You state the quantity of goods you want to supply, if it is by work services, and then the price that you will charge based on the technical. So the tender is, we can say that the tender is an invitation to bid. The tender, it invites you, and then as you respond, yours will be referred to as the bid. But normally we use these words interchangeably. We tend to make them sound as if, we tend to let it sound as if they are the same, but they are not. So let us look at contract or framework contract. A contract is an agreement entered into by two parties for the execution of a certain activity. For example, a sale and a purchase or provision of services. A framework contract is a general term for an agreement with a supplier that sets out terms and conditions against which specific purchases can be made throughout the life of the agreement. So when we talk of the contract agreement, we talk of contract frame of framework contract. We are talking about agreement entered into by two parties for execution of certain activity. So here, what kind of contract are we talking about? We're talking about a contract to supply maybe health commodities to a party. And so normally it's between two parties. One normally being a buyer and the other being the seller. So let us look at the good manufacturing practices, also known as GNP. A quality system covering the manufacturing and testing of active pharmaceutical ingredient, diagnostics, foods, pharmaceutical products, and medical devices. So when we talk of good manufacturing practices, what we mean is that when it comes to health commodities, these health commodities is delicate, okay, and complex. Very, very important, in as much as it is used to cure diseases and sicknesses. At the same time, when it is not properly handled, then it can also cause havoc. So normally, they make sure that those manufacturers are, what do you call it, police. Somebody is always on them making sure that they are doing the right thing. But these days, human beings, we've become money conscious to the extent that we no longer care about standards. We no longer care about standards because people are only interested in being rich. No, people, that is why people will do, some people will do everything. They want to get questions without learning and pass. They don't care. All that they care is that they have, but the same thing applies to the pharmaceuticals. Now we have a lot of fake products in the system. People are dying not because some of the sicknesses, when you hear them, you tend to think that then what happened? There are medications for those diseases. You give it to them, they will take, and then it will not go because most of the drugs, some of the drugs, I won't say most, some of the drugs are fake. And the Food and Drug Board must work hard to ensure that these fake drugs are flushed out from the system. That is why at least every pharmacy, there should be a pharmacist, a well-trained pharmacist. Because when I finished, I was working in when I finished school, my first point of, the first job that I did was a family business, a pharmaceutical company. I was in charge of the wholesale because of my background. And I realized that anytime suppliers, when I was there, anytime suppliers brought items, he would just break them. He would just pick some of them. He would just break them. He had this equipment in the office. You'll be testing them. Because at it, they will bring and they'll tell that this one is fake. So said the Indians will bring them. And he has a way of testing. He will test every single drug that came before we accept them. He will test them to see whether they are genuine or fake. And I don't know if other pharmacy shops, other pharmacies also do it. As to whether they have the time, they are able to do that to say, because some of us maybe may be a nurse, but you may not have that knowledge, may not have that skill to determine which drug is fake and which is not. Are you able to determine with your naked eye?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Unless you have the technical know-how, and even if you have the technical know-how, you don't have the necessary equipment to test. And a lot of diseases people are dying not because there are no medicine, but fake drugs are too much. And people are selling because they won't go for the original. But for the original, they won't get money as they are getting. So they'll go for fake ones. They don't care. They don't care whether people are dying or not. Then we have the pre-qualification. This is a process of predetermining that a specific product from a specific manufacturer meets stated requirements. So you need a World Health Organization, what do you call it? Some of the drugs you need licenses. That is why before you import any drug into the system, you have to be licensed. Make sure that the manufacturer is licensed, and then even in the US, they have these fake drugs in the system. And these fake drugs are not manufactured by the rare manufacturing companies. These are fake manufacturing companies hidden somewhere, and they'll be producing fake drugs. So let us look at the key terms in health commodity procurement. Before I proceed to the key terms, do you have any question with regards to what we've done? Any contribution or question? Bridget?
Please, with the JMP, is it used by only the manufacturers, or FDA also use the same in determining if a drug is good or not?
Is that?
I'm saying that with the JMP, that's the good manufacturing practice, the system,
Yeah.
is it used by only the manufacturers, or FDA also use the same in
The
determining if the
FDA,
drug is?
the Pharmaceutical Society. Now, the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana is doing something. And I don't know if, from time to time, they walk to the pharmacy shops and they ask them to bring receipt of the items that they have, what do you call it? The items that they have in shop, especially, I remember somebody brought this ointment. I've forgotten, very, very, very good ointment from UK. It's very, the substance is white. Forgotten the name. Soda cream. Soda cream is very, very expensive. And then the person works in a hospital in the UK and he brought it. So we gave it to a pharmacy and the person said, no, there should be a receipt covering it. Other than that, when the pharmaceutical society members, when they come there and he's not able to um, tell them the source and then the document covering the items, they will take all the items out. Then I said, wow, it's very good because some of um, the pharmacy shop assistants, they steal the items. They steal them. So they will be stealing from the big pharmacy shops to the smaller ones. See, so you'll be there. Remember enough, my uncle banned the workers from buying bread. He asked them no one should buy bread and bring it to the office, to bring it to the pharmacy. If you want to buy bread, when you close, you buy your bread and you send it. So people were supplying them bread and we said no. He said no. So when I started working with him, I asked him why. And then he laughed. He said, they will tell like insulin. You know that the insulin is expensive. So they will just remove the box. They will cut the bread, remove some of the loaf, and then put the medicine in and cover it as if they are holding bread. Meanwhile, you see some expensive drugs in there, and then they will go and give it to patients or go and sell it to other pharmacy shops. And there are some drugs when they take 2 or 4 of them, they've made a lot of gains, whereas you may be losing a lot. So that is why. So this one, the good manufacturing practice, is not only used by the manufacturer, but it's also used by the regulators, like the Food and Drugs Board and all those groups, like the Pharmaceutical Society, those groups that ensure that products that are on market, products on the market of high quality, or they meet a standard. So it is not only used by the manufacturer, but all other, what do you call it, law enforcement agencies, they all use that. They want to make sure that you are doing the right thing. So let us look at the key terms in health commodity procurement. One is the supplier. The supplier is the party that transfers goods out of its control and to a named recipient. We know who a supplier is already through our first lecture. Then we have the direct procurement, purchaser contract for goods directly from a manufacturer or its representative. So when you say direct procurement, means that you are procuring direct from the manufacturer. And Ghana Health Service can do it because it is a major, what do you call it, player in the health in the health delivery. Then we come into indirect procurement, referring to purchaser contract for goods through intermediary that has or will purchase directly from a manufacturer. So we have indirect procurement. We have direct procurement and indirect. For the direct procurement, you buy directly from the manufacturer, whereas the indirect, you buy from the intermediaries. So you don't deal directly with the manufacturer. when it comes to indirect procurement. So let us look at the procurement process. So the procurement process, we talk about the step. First, we're talking about the procurement life cycle. When you talk of the procurement process, the decision-making process you follow when you buy product, you usually have many options. And this means that each step must be standardized and regulated according to public laws and regulations. So when it comes to health commodity in our part of the world, even those charts, those coming from the the Christian health facilities, they also follow. They follow these processes. So let us look at the steps in health procurement process. One is product selection and quantification. So when it comes to health procurement, the first point is product selection and quantification. What is product selection and quantification? After you are done with the product selection and quantification process, the information is submitted to the procurement unit to obtain correct quantities of the correct product from international, regional, or local marketplaces. So you will do your selection, like the various program units will bring the product they want to procure, and then it will be submitted to the procurement unit for them to also obtain correct quantities of the product from international or regional or local marketplaces. What does this mean? You know, in every organization, everybody has a role. And then this role of the procurement department, that's why I said that when it comes to procurement, the procurement officers themselves don't present a need. The need must be identified and submitted to them by other units. And it is not that unit's responsibility to identify the source of supply. It is not the procurement unit's responsibility to make sure that the correct item has been procured from the right source. And this could be international, it could be regional, or local marketplace. So sometimes some of the items you can, if it is emergency, you can buy them from the local. Let's say in Kumasi, you can go to Bandi, you can go to Lansa, you can go to any of the pharmacy shops that you think, or sometimes you can buy directly from the regional stores if it is allowed. You can buy, or it could be on international. If the drugs are not available in the country, they need to fall on international suppliers. Then the next step is the specification. Having received the order, the procurement unit must ensure that in addition to the product information provided by the program manager, and when we talk of the program managers, we are referring to the heads of the, let's say, malaria or family planning unit. Okay, so after they have, you need to ensure, in addition to the product information provided, on the part of the procurement officers, they may be professional procurement officers, but they cannot determine what drug, the quantity, and then the dosage. They don't do that. Definitely, it will come from the clinicians. It will either come from normally they're in charge. So this one includes generic names, dosage, formulation, and Uh, so I'll start removing you if you disturb. So the specification, so the procurement unit must ensure that in addition to the product information provided by program manager, suppliers must produce product that meets regulatory and packaging requirements. So apart from the information that you have received, you must also make sure that suppliers are abiding by the rules. We are talking about shipping, we are talking about packaging requirements. You know, packaging, when it comes to marketing and you are doing packaging, it's so funny. When it comes to packaging, sometimes there are people who are particular about certain things that you may ignore. You may not consider it as anything. Others pay attention to them. So when it comes to packaging, you need to be very careful. Sometimes some of the things that are written, the words, the names given to in I've forgotten about the item. In Mexico, there is in the US, I've forgotten about the product, the name of the product. But in Mexico, the name of that product, you see, in the US, it doesn't mean any harm. But in Mexico language, it means gay. Okay? It means that the product is for gay group. I know that the Mexicans are also strict. Mexico is one of the strict Catholic countries. So when it comes to some of these things, when it comes to packaging, you need to be very careful. You need to study it, and so you can bring variation if you think that certain things, certain colors or writings on a package will offend people in your country. You don't entertain it. You don't entertain it. There is also one advert, Colgate advert in the UK. On the box, you see a mother teaching the boy how to brush because normally it is mothers who teach children from the early stages. But these days, a lot of fathers do that. But in Saudi Arabia, okay, in Saudi Arabia, instead of using the boy, they rather use the man because there a woman cannot teach a boy, a mother cannot teach even a small boy how to brush. So in the advert, instead of using a woman teaching the boy how to brush, they change it to a man because it was an offense. And another advert too it was a perfume. It was in the US, there was nothing wrong with it. When it came to UK, they said the lady doing where the lady has placed the perfume, uh, it was pointing to her sexuality or something, and that one too was banned in the UK. So when it comes to packaging and all those things, you need to be very careful. That is why after you submit it to the procurement team, they need to make sure that the supplier meet regulatory and then shipping packaging requirements, including proof that the product are manufactured at facilities that meet GNP certification requirement or have full pre-qualification status that they can provide product that meet certain technical specifications, including standard for raw materials and requirement for shelf life, labeling language, and inner and outer packages. You know that it is an offense to bring a product, uh, to bring a product to Ghana, a product with the inscription in different languages other than English. So you can have other languages, but English should be there. Other than that, people know it is the responsibility of the Food and Drugs Board to always go from shop to shop to make sure that the product that are there, the languages used are languages that Ghanaians can understand. So there are some items you read is German, some are in Hindi, some are in, but the Japanese, only time you buy a product from Japan, they will put their language there as well as English. Okay, and if you are bringing the product to Ghana, then you must make sure that the writings are translated into English. And if it is health commodity, you make sure that they meet the GMP certification requirement and then the World Health Organization pre-qualification status. Without this, it is that this one you don't know. It is the procurement unit who are supposed to make sure that all these what do you call it, things are done. Yours is to send the item. It is their responsibility to make sure that the right thing is done. So when it comes to packaging, they should make sure that the language is a language that everybody can understand and it is well packaged. So let us look at assessment and selection of procurement options. Please, just a minute, just a minute. Okay. So let us look at assessment and selection of procurement options. Most of the time, procurement units have two main procurement options, direct and indirect procurement. So when you talk of direct procurement, it's when the purchaser establishes direct contact with suppliers or their representatives. Usually, bids are solicited from the marketplace, individual suppliers respond, and the contract is established between the purchaser and selected supplier. So here, you establish direct contact with suppliers or their representatives. That is why we call it direct procurement, because you buy directly from the organization. So we have two main types of direct procurement. We have there are two main types of direct procurement. We have the international competition and small scale national competition. When you talk of international competition, this one involves adherence to standardized procedures that I'll start removing all of you until you stop. So we have international competition, which involves adherence to standardized procedures that the public sector uses when there are multiple potential suppliers. So where there are, we say we have two main types of direct procurement. We have international competition and small-scale national competition. When it comes to international competition, this one comes about when we use standardized procedures that the public sector uses when there are multiple potential suppliers. So in a situation where you have multiple suppliers, when you have a lot of them, then you apply this, what do you call it, the international competition, because there is a standard that they all must follow. That's what we call the ISO. We have the international, what do you call it, standard that you need to follow. That is why these days, when you buy Android phone, realize that the charging unit, the charging system, different phones, but they all have the same charger. There are few instances. So if you pick Samsung, you pick Infinix, you pick most of the Android phones, they have a common charger. And this is possible because of what? The ISO, the International Standard Organization, making sure that we standardize things. Even vehicles these days, you have parts that can be used for a lot of vehicles. They have a standard parts that can be used for almost all vehicles. Then when the procurement unit creates an invitation to tender or request bids directly to solicit formal offers from suppliers. The process follows international good procurement practices, including formal bidding documents, sealed bid responses, public bid opening, and contract award based on evaluation criteria included in bidding documents. So here, when it comes to international competition, you open, you send a tender, and then you invite or you request bids directly. So you get information from suppliers all over them. Sometimes we have formal bidding documents. The formal bidding documents are documents that are developed by the organization and given to suppliers to fill. So you need to follow. And then you need to also look at the requirements. And then we have sealed bid responses, or sometimes you will create your own, and then you bid and you seal it and then you send. We also have public bid opening and contract award based on evaluation criteria included in the bidding process or in the bidding documents. So sometimes you can also do that basing your evaluation criteria on the document on the document available. So when it comes to bidding, every contract and then the standard or the procedure you are required to follow. So it is not a straitjacket thing. It's not that because you are bidding, you must use the same thing. No, some are different. So you follow certain standard to be able to do. Then we come to small scale, Bridget.
Please.
Hello, Bridget.
Hello.
Yes.
Please, with the international competition, is it always like, must it always be done internationally? For example, the Ministry of Health, when they went ahead to purchase the COVID vaccine.
You know what?
Please, I can't hear you. Yes.
I'm saying that under the international competition, so with what our Ministry of Health did years back with the COVID vaccine, did they tender in an invitation asking them, like the suppliers, that if any of them were willing
Yeah, I
to
think that's
give
what they
us.
did.
Okay.
But that's what but some of them too were being purchased. Some of the drugs were purchased by the World Health Organization and distributed to countries. Some of them were actually gifts. Most of them were purchased and delivered to us. There were a few instances that, and those that we bought them directly from the manufacturers through that international competition, competitive, what do you call it, bidding.
Okay, sir.
Let us look at the small-scale national competition. For the small-scale national competition, it is used to solicit offers from a local marketplace. Offers are usually requested from a few suppliers, and prices are negotiated. This is often called shopping. So when we talk of small-scale national competition, what this means is that you have suppliers, you don't deal with everybody.
Mute yourself,
The
Mr.
trust is Ziko to yin law nandi ay bune.
Iliasu.
I've removed him. Don't worry. So this one, you solicit offers from local market. So from the local suppliers. These ones, international suppliers, are excluded. They are not part of the bidding process. You solicit offers from local suppliers. And normally it is not every supplier who is called. You normally deal with few, those in good standing, those you can trust. Because some manufacturers, you cannot trust them. You realize that these days, the hospitals, which company's drug do you use? Do you use Gihog more? That is Zetritorica, there's this Gihog. And then you have that of Letab. I don't know if Letab is still active. Now we have a lot of them, but it's not all of them that you depend on. I think you buy some from NS Chemist. Ghana Health Service, you buy some from NS Chemist.
No, we buy from
Sir.
Tobacco.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Tobinco, NS. We have local manufacturers that we buy from. And these are, when it comes to local, what do you call it? Small scale national competition. You don't invite everybody, but the few, those that you think are in good standing. We have indirect procurement, and this one is conducted by an intermediate organization. The procurement unit does not interact with the marketplace. The procurement contract is between the procurement unit and another organization. The procurement unit usually pays a fee to provide the service. So here, when we talk of the indirect procurement, here the procurement unit does not deal directly with the manufacturer. Okay, you don't deal with the manufacturer. You ask their agents or intermediaries to do the supplies, to supply the items for you. Then we have international supply services and international procurement agencies. These are organizations that purchase products in bulk and resell to non-profit healthcare organizations in developing countries. They maintain catalogs of products and sell to donor organizations and government at cost plus fees. When you say cost plus fees, what it means is that the cost you pay for the cost of the item in addition to their margin. And in their margin, we are talking about their profits. So if the cost of the item is 10 Ghana, they will put maybe 2 cedis as their cost plus fee. That is the cost plus fee. The fee is the 2 cedi that they have added to the cost. So you will pay 12 cedis instead of 10 cedis. So this is what the International Supply Service and international procurement agencies do. They procure from the manufacturers and then they'll sell to non-profit organizations like governments and then other institutions, other NGOs. So let us look at the budget funding and procurement requisition. What is budget funding and procurement requisition? So we have budget, funding, and procurement requisition. So here we're saying that the procurement units support the supply chain and program managers with important planning inputs on product pricing. It is also the responsibility of the procurement unit to coordinate with the Ministry of Health and then all the Ministry of Finance, stakeholders and funding agencies to determine when funds will be released to procure the products. So when it comes to this one, the procurement department liaises with the various ministries responsible and then other funding agencies to determine when funds will be released. So you can't just get up and pitches without getting the thumbs up, getting the go-ahead from the appropriate ministries. And then purchasers usually need to have access to the funds before any bidding document can be released. When it comes to bidding, before you bid, before you ask people, the tender process starts, you should secure the funding. Okay, you don't let people supply the item before you come and tell them stories that the government hasn't done that, the government hasn't done A, the government hasn't done B. No, they will not accept it. So you need to make sure that you have funds before you start, before you go out there, procure anything. So before any bidding document can be released, delays with funds are one of the major reasons for procurement delays. So normally, procurement delays are as a result of lack of funds. Where you don't have funds, you cannot go ahead to procure. So you always must make sure that funds are available before you call for bidding, before you ask people to supply. Because if they supply them and you don't have the needed funds, you are going to be in trouble. So let us look at the procurement planning. What is procurement planning? It includes the identification of procurement method to be used, list of the key steps in the procurement process, such as advertise bid, open bid, evaluate bid, award contract, disburse payment, and a timeline with estimated dates for completing each step of the process, including the names of the responsible parties. So when it comes to procurement planning, you need to identify the procurement method that you are going to use. And then you need to also list the steps that you are going to follow with regards to whether you are doing open tender, we have open tender, we have closed tender. Open tender is open to everybody. And when it comes to the closed tender, then it's like you are restricting it to certain category or certain suppliers. You are not opening it to everybody. You must also give timelines with the estimated dates for completing each step of the process, including names of the responsible. So the procurement process from the need recognition to vendor selection, all to order fulfillment, all those ones you need to stipulate. You need to know who is going to do what, who is responsible for what. You need to identify all of them before you start. The next step is to develop bidding documents and invite offers. So for effective competitive procurement, it is important for you to create detailed bidding documents against which suppliers will assess their ability and interest in providing the goods. So you need to develop bidding documents and then you invite offers. So bidding documents you develop should explain in detail, one, the quantities, specifications, and quality assurance requirements of the desired product. So you need to give the bidding document, you need to state the item, the quantity, you need to give the specs. As I indicated when we started, we know that when it comes to health commodities, you pick an item and then item has various forms. And then as well as the dosage, you need to indicate it. You need to ensure quality assurance for the desired product. How do you ensure quality assurance? In your facilities, when you receive item, how are you able to determine that these items that we have received or I have received is not fake, but are authentic? How are we able to do that? How do you do it? I'm asking you a question. Okay.
What's the dilatation?
And when I
It's
said,
so 4 cm. 4
Bridget,
cm and she's crying like that.
yeah,
Say,
Bridget,
what I know we did the last time was that we bought Sablon, the product that we used during
Bridget, your line is breaking.
this way. My mic is disturbing. Say,
Yes, Bridget, your line is faint.
please, can you hear me now?
Okay, let's continue. I can't hear Bridget, so let's continue. You can type. And so the document should also explain the delivery date and required destination of the shipment. You need to give delivery dates when the items will be delivered and then the destination of the item. Okay, so you compare the new product batch number to the new to the old one. Okay. So you need to have the delivery date and then the required destination of the shipping. You need to have regulations, procedures, and timing for responding to the bids. So here we have regulation procedures. Okay, when you can respond to the bids, so that there should be deadlines, timelines that you need to follow. If you submit them late, you don't blame anyone. My dean at a point in time was telling us a story that for him, anytime he bids for contracts, he doesn't submit on time. And normally he submits in person. So you give it to somebody, one of his boys, to go and sit there. If the deadline is maybe 5 p.m., he submits it by 4:30, 4:40, 4:50. At that time, you wouldn't have the luxury to open the bits and then read and know the content, so that you go and tell. And people too, it's a human society. So what people will do is that some of the procurement officers will open people's bids and then tell their colleagues what people have done, so that they modify their own bids. It is not the best, but then you cannot fault them, because that is a human society. So for him, what he does is that he makes sure he hand deliver, he deliver the item, the bid himself. So you need to let the suppliers know the selection criteria. You should let them know the criteria that will be used to evaluate and select them. Very, very important. Sometimes we don't tell them. We don't tell them and they fail, we can't blame them. Sometimes we don't tell them, and they don't even know the criteria that they use to evaluate and select them. It is not fair. Let them know, so that sometimes there are some people, once they know, they don't even bid for it because they know they will fail. Others also try. They try and then they get it. That somebody was telling me that sometimes in adverts, some organizations will advertise and say that they want second class upper, first class. I think these days they've stopped those things, because having second class upper or first class doesn't make a good performer. You see, you can be good in academic, but when it comes to practical, you may be lacking certain things. But when it comes to on the job, we are not looking at the academics only. We also look at the practical aspect of it. You being able to work with your hand, that is the most important. And I know that in your profession, once you finish and you are working, what they look out for is the quality, is your output, no longer the certificate. Because the certificate will not be rating at your back there. People to know that, oh, I got first class. So you are no. It's your performance on the board that will determine whether you are a good midwife or not. So the selection criteria, how they are going to be selected, how suppliers are going to be selected, should be made known to them. Any question? Any question? Contribution so far before I proceed? Okay, so the next step is selecting suppliers. A program's success depends on selecting suppliers that will be able to deliver high quality goods at an affordable cost within the required time frame. So whilst when they talk of the programs such as like the malaria program, family planning program, and then disease control programs, saying that if those programs will be successful, then it will also depend on the kind of suppliers we select to deliver high quality products at an affordable cost within the required time frame. All these are important because some suppliers are not reliable. Okay, so you give them task, you assign what do you call timelines, and they don't follow. Cecilia, when it comes to, I think, how does it, you see, this one, it depends. Once a product is expired, once it doesn't expire, a product cannot be used after the shelf life. So you need to make sure that the supplier has a good track record, is somebody that you can rely on. So the first step of the evaluation process is to evaluate the bids against the requirement that were set out in the bidding document. This includes ensuring that the bids are in the correct format, contain all the required information, samples and terms, and are otherwise complete. So here, what you need to do is that if you are selecting suppliers, you need to evaluate the process, the bidding process. Make sure that bids are in correct format, because every tendering process has a format. That is why the best thing is to give them the document so that they follow. People don't write their own. They follow, they lay down, what do you call it, processes. So these are the following guidelines for reviewing bids that meet the minimum requirement. 1, you need to evaluate all bids or proposals by the same criteria to ensure equity, impartiality, and transparency. You use the same standard, the same format, use the same criteria. You don't assess supplier A on criteria A. Then when it comes to supplier B, you use different criteria. It should be the same. It should be the same criteria. You assess them fairly. You need to avoid partiality. You have to be impartial. There should be transparency and then equity, fairness. Bids must match the requirements included in the bid document. At the time the bid was released, bid must match the requirement included in the bid. So the bid, whoever bids for contract, you make sure that they are following the lay down, what do you call it, rules or the requirements stated in the bidding document must be followed. Reject and do not evaluate bids and proposals that do not qualify. Once you open and realize that they've not qualified, this is not the time to correct anything for them. The rule says I reject them. Any reject and do not evaluate bids and proposal that do not qualify. Any bid or proposal that do not qualify, we say that you should not evaluate it, ignore. Then you need to evaluate all qualified bids and proposals based on the lowest price. So whilst looking at it, you need to evaluate all qualified bids and proposals based on the lowest price. But it's not always the case you go for the lowest bidder. When you say the lowest price, you first must look at, there are some items that the supplier cannot do anything. You can't go beyond, you can't go below certain price. Okay, so if you are sure that the items are the same, if the items are the same, for instance, you ask people to provide HP computers from this company, and they are all producing the specs are the same, then you go for the lowest bidder. You won't go for what do you call it? That is the only criteria you can use to do. So if it is a policy to give preference to national companies, clearly state the nature and extent of the preference in the initial invitation to tender or request for proposals. So sometimes you need to indicate, you know, that in some adverts, they will state that people with this qualification will be given advantage. Sometimes, and then you need to state, if you are going to favor some people, if some people will be favored, you need to state it. You don't allow people to bid, because if you tell me from the onset that you are going to favor this category of people, and I know that I don't fall within that category, I wouldn't bid in the first place. But if you don't state it, and later on you come to tell me that it's only Ghanaians or people who are this or that, then this law says that you are not being fair to them. They should know. They should know. Everybody should know how you are going to assess them. If your policy demands that you give preference to other people, it has to be stated initially. For instance, Newmont Ghana, for instance, anytime they are buying from suppliers,
Wow. And one would do. Good evening.
that for some items, they will go for the indigens. So for the indigens, they will tell me local. Then they have the local, which is also they look at their